Alright, so here's a random question for you. So what exactly would be the problem if Ukraine would be a neutral country? What would be the problem? I'm just asking, it's just a question. Because I do understand, of course, that there are many people in the West, many people in Europe, that wouldn't want Ukraine to be completely taken over by Russia. They wouldn't want Ukraine to become fully under control of Russia. I do understand that, even though I believe that that would primarily be a sentimental standpoint, but I do understand it. But on the other hand, I also understand very well that from a Russian perspective, it would be unacceptable for Ukraine to become part of NATO or any other Western military alliance or even the EU. Because from a Russian perspective, that would be an existential threat to Russia as a nation state. Now, whether you agree with that or not, and wherever you stand in this conflict, whoever you believe is responsible for this, whoever you believe started all of this, it doesn't really matter. These are the facts. And if we want to solve this conflict, if we want to solve this all, we have to be pragmatic and we have to deal with these facts. So just to remind ourselves, let's step back for a moment, because the funny thing is that not too long ago, the relationship between Europe and Russia was, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was pretty good. I mean, the relationship was mutually very, very beneficial. I mean, Europe had a very, very sweet deal. Russia could provide all the oil and gas that Europe ever needed. They got it at a huge discount, and it was right there. Russia is right next door. So what more could you want? And that was basically the lifeline of the European economy. So this construction was very, very successful for both Europe as well as Russia. So this was a very, very good deal. Until such time when the European leadership, the European political leaders, proved to be either extremely dumb, or extremely spineless, or extremely corrupt, or maybe a combination of those. So they let themselves be pressured by the United States government to go along with this idiotic plan to start meddling in Ukraine, where they had no business at all. They started messing in Ukraine, knowing full well that that would antagonize Russia, and they also knew in advance that from a Russian perspective, so again, whether you agree with this or not, it is a fact that they knew in advance that from a Russian perspective, Russia would have to respond somehow. And boy, did they respond. So here we are, 4 years in a war. Well, some may call it a war, others may call it a special military operation. Whatever you want to call it, people are dying. Many, many, many people have already died. Many more will die as long as this continues. The country is being destroyed. It is absolutely horrific, right? And as a result of that, economically, Europe has been hit extremely hard, because the European leaders, again, were stupid enough to let themselves again be pressured by the United States to go along with, imposing literally thousands of sanctions on Russia, many of which backfired very hard on the European economy. I mean, they were even stupid enough to cut themselves off of Russian gas and oil, which is probably the single most stupendous decision ever made in human history. So they said, we don't need Russian oil and gas. We can buy LNG from the United States, which was at least 4 times as expensive and gave the United States government even more leverage over Europe. Yeah, but we can also buy gas and oil from the Middle East. So how has that been working out for you? So it's become extremely apparent that Europe is absolutely dependent on others for their energy. So the decisions that these European leaders have made were absolutely detrimental to the European economy. But the stupidity of the European leadership didn't end there. No. Again, they let themselves be pressured by the United States, and then they thought it would be a good idea to spend hundreds of billions of euros of our tax money on expanding the European Defense Force with the objective to, in the not so distant future, get involved in a direct war with Russia. I mean, in what kind of absolutely mad, stupendous world are we living? I mean, don't they realize that Europe would be completely destroyed? Russian technology, Russian missile technology is light years ahead of even the United States, let alone Europe. I mean, for example, so Russia has a hypersonic missile called the EurAsian, right? With this weapon alone, Russia can literally take out every single major city in Europe within an hour or so. Europe would be completely decimated. And these people are leading us towards a direct war with Russia? It is absolute madness. Now, what if this could relatively easily be avoided if the European political leadership would start talking, which they have refused for over 4 years, start talking to the Russian leadership, and they would agree that Ukraine would not become part of Russia, would also never become part of NATO or the European Union. Of course, they would also have to agree on some kind of security structure for Ukraine and the entire region. Of course, Ukraine could then do business with whomever they want, so the United States or Europe or Russia or China, whoever. Europe could start building up their relationship with Russia again, and the war would be over. So if we're going to be pragmatic about this and weigh everything against one another, if this could solve everything, right? Again, my question is, what exactly would be the problem if Ukraine was a neutral country? I'm just asking.